Okay, great. Well, speaking of puzzles,
Ooh.
let's transition to our member segment here, which is going to be Jesse's rules of puzzle design. Jesse, tell him. Okay, you're the puzzle guy. Why? Just this is fun for you. Talk to me about puzzles and why you gravitate towards them.
Again, I approach board games like they're puzzles, which is sometimes history has shown that I will do that, and it will cause analysis paralysis. And I try to let that go and try to come up with as the best, more improv style of come up with the best option as quickly as possible to move the game. Look, rules of puzzle design.
Is that the wrong word?
Well, I think I'm going to say it's more like guidelines,
tips.
And then this is really a working thing for me. This stemmed from I was designing something with somebody at one point, and they said I was having some problems with it, and he's like, I think this works. What do you what would you rate this puzzle? I said, I think maybe a 6. And we were talking about it, and then I go, but this other puzzle we designed, I would say it's like a 9 or 10 actually. And to me, it had to do with like theme, and to me, it being a meaningful experience. But aside from that, I was like, there's more than that. And I go, I want to come up with like my 10, maybe 10 commandments.
Okay.
That are like, this is the goal anyway, of check boxes of like, when we're designing something, if we check all these boxes, then we got a 10 puzzle. And if we're not, then what are we missing? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the goal anyway. And so I started to compile some things, and I wouldn't say this is comprehensive. This is more of an experiment.
Sure.
But I'd like to eventually come up with something like that. So first of all, let's just sort of distinguish.
So this is how Jesse recommends to you to get your puzzles to a 10 out of 10.
Although I only have 8 things written down so far. So again, so I'm not, again, that's the goal, but I'm not there yet. So I'm just sort of throwing some things out there right now.
Sure.
So first of all, let's talk about some board games that have mini games and puzzles in them, like Pipeline. You say that's a puzzle in itself, right?
Yeah.
Which he made into a Curious Cargo, a whole game out of that simple puzzle,
sure.
Competitively. And then there's like Feast of Odin, which has that sort of like
Tetris-y, fit your pieces together. Yep.
Which he turned into a whole other game of patchwork, right?
Yeah, and more. He has a lot of those kind of tile laying games,
right? And then there's games that I feel like have like puzzles like that as part of the concept of it. As in, like, Detective to me is yes, it's a deduction game, but I feel like you're solving puzzles. And sometimes in the case of the cameras comparing, they've found a way to really integrate the puzzle in a very organic way, which I really appreciate about it. Chronicles of Crime is similar. Time Stories,
mm-hmm.
Seventh Continent. And then you have all of the sort of escape room in a box type things like Exit Game. So these are board games in a sense that are puzzled by theme. So the first one that comes to mind, and this to me is maybe the most important thing, so maybe it should be the last thing, but no, it should be the first thing.
Okay, I think, all right.
Is that your theme should be your palette. Everything to me, if you have a theme, if you have a great mechanic, you just want to try something, that's awesome. But lots of things, sometimes they come with stories. So I would say that's a gift. Whatever the context of the story is, that becomes your palette.
Okay.
And so you're grabbing those materials. Like with Detective, it's so organic. You're just gonna, you're gonna have these leads and you're gonna follow them. But I don't know. No matter what it is.
But right, you're not just making puzzles for the sake of puzzles or like having to figure something. Like there should be a theme that links it all together, inspires what you're doing, gives a logic to the overall experience.
There's that. That's thinking of how to connect puzzles, but I'm also saying, like, let's say you have the narrative and I want to put an interaction, or I want to put a puzzle here, here, and here. Okay, great. What's the context of it? That's going to be your palette, so that you're not just making chess puzzles.
Right. It's not abstract.
There's so many chess puzzles.
Yeah. Right.
And it's like, why the chess puzzle? Like it should be within this sort of theme. I understand it's easy to make a grid. It's easy to people understand that, and then but it's like taking these elements, not just reskinning it and putting some graphics on there that are of your theme, but like also ideally you're making the feeling like what you're doing, feeling like you're informing the narrative,
right?
And
you're going to emotionally connect to it better.
You're doing something real.
There's going
right?
to be an internal logic to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that by the time you finish the puzzle, it informs the narrative that's coming after it.
Mm-hmm.
So you take from the theme to inspire what your puzzle should be, and the result of the puzzle should inform the narrative that's coming after it, I think. And by the way, so there's a great quote from Jonathan Blow, and do you know who Jonathan Blow is?
I don't, but I'll put him in the show notes.
Yeah, he designed Braid, a video game.
Yeah, right.
And also one of my favorite all-time games, The Witness. And I found a quote from him. It was like, the more that a puzzle is about something real and something specific, and the less it's about some arbitrary challenge, the more meaningful that epiphany is. I couldn't agree more.
Great.
So that's the first one. And by the way, and everything just comes back to that.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like
that's
it's always
the big one. That's the big one here. Okay.
So establish a clear goal. Number two.
Number two, establish a clear goal.
I think it's just more enjoyable if a player knows like what they're trying to achieve. And by the way, there's a book called The 48 Laws of Power. It's a great book, and it uses history to talk about these laws that were observed in history, and then when they were transgressed, and it really sort of shows you why this is a law. But then they also have reversals, and they show you exceptions to that, and times that you shouldn't. You should do the opposite, actually. And so, with that spirit, I feel like establish a clear goal is it's not always a commandment. Sometimes part of the puzzle is figuring out the goal, or if it's an Easter egg, you didn't even know the puzzle existed before, right?
Okay, yeah.
So, for instance, this also came up because somebody said, I was like talking to somebody I work with, and we were talking about some of these, and he had said, "Oh, I really like to make sure that the player feels smart." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And I had read somewhere somebody was saying something like, "There's a difference between making the person feel like they figured something out versus them going, oh, I understand." There's a communication between the designer and the player,
right?
That I think is an interesting opportunity. But when my friend said that about making them feel smart, I was like, when have I felt smart? And there's a book that just came out called The Cipher Files by Dimitris Chassapakis. I'm not saying that right, and I just bad. And Dimitris just rolling his eyes. And I read his first book, Journal 20. I forget what it was, but I enjoyed him, and I reached out to him on Facebook, and we communicate every once in a while. And there was this one Easter egg. There's one thing that happened in this book, The Cipher Files, and I was like, I think this might be a puzzle that he's not talking about. And then I had to go through some steps, and I had to pull out an image program, and I had to pull some things apart and reconstruct it. And then I did this, I tested it, and I was able to scan it, basically, and it did it. It took me to a page where it said, "Congratulations, you found this Easter egg." And I wrote to him, and I was like, "That was amazing. Thank you for doing that." And he goes, "You did it." He goes, "You're the first person who's done that."
Oh, okay,
so
great.
I felt really smart like that. And he did not give me any clear instructions. But I feel like that's an exception. Other than that, I feel like people should know, essentially, like, they should have an idea of what they're doing. That seems maybe obvious.
Well, like in the parallel to like what we do in board games all the time, Matt and Tom have talked about like how to teach a board game. One of the things we do right off the bat is, how do you win? Like start with the ending, start with how do you win, so that you have that context for everything you're going to do to get there. And that seems similar to what you're talking about here.
Yep, that's great. So let's see, a third one. Rewarding player for progression, especially if there's like multiple steps to a puzzle. Like, let them know that they're on the right track.
Feedback. Give them feedback that they're successfully, incrementally making progress.
Yeah. So, because if people feel like they're following some lead for something, and they're just going down a path, and they don't know if they're on the right track. They could spend hours, unless you want them to do that. Now,
Right.
are you aware of this group called Cicada 3301?
No.
It's considered one of the most
Wait, I have heard of that. I have heard of that, right? Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
probably heard of it recently, or maybe you heard about it back in the day. It kind of
Is it
popped
an
up.
ARG thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Like of a really intense nature. It's like some of the most difficult puzzles ever. And it was brought up again recently if you watch the QAnon series, the documentary on the QAnon.
Yes, right. That too, right. I did
So they
watch that
brought it up
on
there
HBO.
too.
Very good.
And people were wondering at the time. I remember because I looked at this years ago, and I was trying to do some of these puzzles, and they were really, really difficult. Is this like a recruiting device for CIA or some secret society?
Ugh.
And the cicada, if you know them, they are these little
They're not that little.
oh well yeah, what are these little bugs? Well, whatever, they're
big.
bugs.
They're big bugs.
They're big bugs that hibernate for like 17 years,
Yes.
and then they come out of hiding, and then they mate. They have this, like, it's happening actually in DC or something.
That's right.
It's like
it's happening this year, right?
like this year, and they're going to make it a crazy amount of noise, and that's basically the males. Like, it's a mating thing,
Yeah.
and they're calling out to the females. They're going to do their thing, and then their offspring or whatever, they're going to go hibernate again for 17 years and come back out and do that all over again. Right. I don't know why that is. I think that the implication of this for this, whatever the society, whatever it is, the cicada, is that they're coming out, and this is like they're coming out
beneath
soon.
the surface. They're literally beneath the surface, and now they're emerging and doing their thing. Yeah, so that's very QAnon, right?
Yes. Now, so I'm wondering, is this good puzzle design? If people don't know, these are really difficult puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
And so is that just bad puzzle design? I was sort of like, I was pontificating about this, and I was like, I don't know, that's just bad puzzle design. But then again, it's actually perfect because they're looking for like-minded people, and you have to have a knowledge of technology, of computers, of programming on a crazy level. So if they're targeting that audience
right.
and not the general public, then it's probably perfect design, because they only want people to solve it if they're like-minded.
Yeah, that was my response. Is like, it's really just a question of audience. You know, are you designing something that's going to that anyone can do, or rather, are you putting something out there? And if 0.01% of people that even came near it engage with it, like, that might be fine. Like, it might be designed to be like, this is a puzzle game for hardcore puzzlers, and like, it's not for everyone, but those people that do engage with it are gonna engage hard.
Yeah. One thing I didn't write down that I could easily put in here is the difficulty, like, again, like, sort of understanding your audience, who's this for, and also scaling the difficulty of the puzzles. The intro puzzle should probably be it's almost like the hook in a movie, and especially in like the first act, in a sense of like telling you what's possible, what's possible in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But like the opening hook is kind of like, where am I? Here you go. You're thrown into the world, and it's just really telling you what the setting is. And so the first puzzle should be your foray into the kinds of stuff you're going to be doing, I feel. And then it can scale. And it doesn't have to always be harder. It can kind of go up and down depending, have these sort of flagpoles of difficulty. But yeah, so I didn't put that in here, and I also didn't put things like involving the craft of iterating, and like it is important to put something out there, like with any game design. Put it out there so you have something to work with, and you'll discover how to make it better by having those moving parts. I didn't put those in here, but those could totally be in this somewhere. But I'll go to the next one on my list. Number 4 is the keys to the solution are readily available. They're somewhere in front of you, whether they don't always have to be apparent from the get-go.
You're saying there's, but so the thing, like, you're not in the world of make them up. I should be considering everything. There should be some key to what you're supposed to be figuring out.
Yes. Like, for instance, do you know what a pigpen cipher is?
I don't know what a pigpen cipher is.
I'm sure you know Morse code, but you may not know all that. You haven't memorized all of the. Yeah. But like, I don't know. I know of Morse code. I know of pigpen ciphers, and I could picture a pigpen cipher in my mind, and I have the key. A Morse code, I have to look it up.
Sure.
So if something's going to require one of those things or anything of this nature, that's just a good example. You have to give them the key. If they don't have access to the internet, or if it's like an escape room or something, you got to have some other way. It doesn't necessarily have to be gifted to them. Maybe they have to discover it in some other way, and you can find it, hopefully an organic way to put it in there. But they do have to have the key. They shouldn't have to have prior knowledge. And maybe that's an obvious one. But a pigpen cipher, by the way, is basically picture like a hashtag.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then there's basically it's like in the top left it's A, and then there's a B and C, and it goes to the next row D E F, next row. Okay, and then there's another slightly different. Oh, you add a dot to it, and then that'll be like the next set. And then I think it does some other shape. I forget what it does, but you can basically, whenever you see a shape of like a basically the top right of the hashtag and that that little 9-degree angle,
right?
And you see like a series of these shapes. That's a pigpen cipher probably.
Okay.
Now I know that not many people know that, so you have to have some sort of nod, hopefully, to pigs.
Right, but you've leveled up as a puzzler. So you have some shorthand. You've got some things that you've grokked where you're quick to recognize. Oh, this is a pigpen cipher. I'm looking for certain things that are I'm looking at the capital letters. I'm looking at the first letters of words. I'm looking at the last letters of words. That kind of thing.
Now you don't have to make it obvious how to solve something. Like people may have to do some work and pay attention to other clues around, or just figure out how it works, and it doesn't have to be obvious. But in terms of like, I need a key that I don't have in front of me, that I don't have memorized, like you can't do that.
Okay.
So that's that.
So the key should be right in front of them, the players.
It should be accessible within the experience, whatever it is. This is maybe not so much of a rule as just a really strong suggestion.
Number 5
is turning expectations. Number 5 is turning expectations. And really, like, what's really great is playing on what people expect and then turning on its head. It's like a great joke, and like you hit 1, 2 set up, and then the third one goes in the other direction,
mm-hmm.
and it really makes people, especially if I see, it's this kind of puzzle, and it's this chess puzzle. Oh, okay, great, here we go. I just need to do this, and then do something different with it. Take it to another level. There's this great. Well, first of all, there's this thing in Magic called Tenuism. Are you familiar with this?
I've seen the Prestige.
Is that mentioned?
That's talking about the steps of a trick, but no, Tenuism I don't know. Explain Tenuism.
Tenuism is I don't know. Is this there's a book on it where this guy Richard Kaufman, basically they take sometimes years developing a magic trick, and Tenuism is basically it's got to have at least double the delivery. So it does something cool, but then it does something on a whole nother level. And I feel like I like that as a concept in terms of puzzle design. There's a group called the Mysterious Package Company that does various sort of, you can go on their website and you can get a whole bunch of these, like you buy some sort of box or whatever, and you're going to solve these crazy puzzles. And some of them they're easy, and it's more about a narrative experience. That's kind of the new thing. It's happening all over the place. And then they had this thing for a limited time called Curios and Conundrums, which was a series of newspaper puzzles. You basically get a package of a newspaper that they wrote up all these articles, that fake articles, and then a few little trinkets of things and things that'll go with it, and the whole thing is just littered with puzzles. And they take this puzzle and they just have so much fun with it, and everything goes a step beyond. It's like you solve it, but it really means something else. You have to do it another level. Right. And then when you solve it, you're applying it to this key, like you'll see like a legend in each issue.
Right.
And then there's a little box with the symbols that match. So you see if there's matching symbols, that it goes to this legend, right? And then you can apply whatever word or whatever you got from it to there. And then they had a website called The Vault, which connected all of the issues together. So it's like a meta and a meta puzzle. It's crazy. But anyway, I love that. It was really inspiring. And they did a lot of that, taking things next level and turning my expectations. So that's really great. bonus points for just inventing a new puzzle no one's ever seen before.
Right.
It's really hard because you got to take things like you take what you got and you have certain mediums, and people probably already thought a lot about this, but trying to come up with something new. All right, we've heard about the aha moments, right? Aha moments in games and in puzzle design is a big deal.
Okay.
I sort of.
Well, do you want to explain that? Like, what's an aha moment?
An aha moment is, I think it's most often considered like, oh, they discovered it, whatever that is. Because I don't think it's just discovering the answer.
Right.
This is what but it's that idea.
Like, we have the aha moment in a board game where, like, that difficult thing that someone was trying to teach you the board game and you didn't really get it until you got to a certain point in the game. You did a thing and suddenly, aha, the game clicked, like things came in alignment. It's a moment of understanding.
Yeah.
That's pleasurable.
Yes. Yeah. It is what you live for. It's why you do puzzles, really.
Right.
It's to experience that aha moment when that clicks and or the riddle once you get it. And I feel like there are 5 opportunities, at least 5 categories of opportunities within any puzzle that are potential aha moments. And the first one is in the reveal of the puzzle. That is an experience.
Discovering that there is a puzzle.
Opening the box and there's the materials and going, ooh, that is an opportunity for a designer to do something with it. Instead of just like, here's a piece of paper with some stuff on it, which is maybe necessary and that's fine. But just saying that's an opportunity for
So rather than coming out and saying we're doing a puzzle, when people discover that there's a puzzle, like that in itself can be a moment.
Sure. Yeah. And then the next step is discovering the first breadcrumb, the premise. It's like knowing what to do. There's the Holy Grail. I don't know where to go yet, but I know that this thing exists. And maybe that's in the intro. Maybe there's some explanation that is maybe just flavor text and it's not telling you what to do, or maybe this text is either telling you directly what to do. This is how you win the game, essentially, or it's suggesting it, which is fun too. But anyway, discovering the first breadcrumb of the premise is an aha moment. The third one is discovering the key. There could be mini keys. There could be in a multi-stage puzzle. There could be mini keys where it's right in front of you. So if this is a pig pen cipher, and discovering that there is sort of a pig pen key somewhere, then I see, that is an opportunity for an aha.
Okay.
Then there's discovering the final path to figuring out the solution. I know what to do. Okay, and then you're working it out. And then there's the fifth one, of course, the revelation of the solution.
Okay,
that is the ultimate sort of and some people just go, oh, you did it. But I think it should be good. It should be a great revelation.
Right, and it should tie back to your first thing about like the theme or whatever. Like it should be something that like helps make everything make sense?
Yes, I think so. Hopefully. And I'll get to that a bit. But like, for instance, here's sometimes riddles do this, which is not good. Like here's a bad riddle. Okay, I'm going to break it down very simply.
Okay.
I'm thinking of two numbers that add up to 10. Go ahead.
9 and 1.
Nope.
8 and 2.
No.
7 and 3.
Yep, that's it. That is a bad puzzle. It has many answers, possibly, and it should have been obvious in some way that 7 and 3 was the answer. If it's not, then that's a bad puzzle, right?
Right.
Okay. So, but I'm going to go to the seventh one on the list, which is avoid solution fatigue, as I'm just calling it. It's the drudgery.
Okay.
Also known as drudgery. So the idea is the duration between step 4 of the aha moments, the discovery of the final path and how to solve it, and getting to the final path should be short. And I think it should be relative to, one, like how enjoyable the experience is of whatever you have to do, like solving ciphers. And once you understand that this means that, if you have a long cipher and it's just going to take forever,
right,
it's drudge work.
Yeah, that's
and unless the reveal is so fantastic, or unless you really enjoy it, like if it's a game and you're sort of shooting things and you enjoy that, then maybe that's okay. But if it's really just looking things up, like for instance, book ciphers. You know what a book cipher is?
Yes.
So that's people who don't know. That's like you'll see three numbers, 7, 13, and 5, or so, whatever it is, or it could be 4. Um, and basically, what that means is go to page 7 on word 17, look for the 5th letter, and then you'll have a series of those, and it'll spell a word. Those are notorious for being like, once you realize that you're doing that, you go, oh, that's cool. But then you have to go up and look up all of them.
Then it's just a lot of work. Yeah.
It's just a lot of judge work. And it's like, I figured it out. I just want to brute force this. And so those are
I feel like
tough
this was a part of like the Thomas Harris novels of how prisoners can talk to each other without the guards know what they're talking about. Is like if they're both referencing the same book, then that's their code. Like right. That's the key to translating the code is knowing what the book is. And so it's kind of famous for prisoners communicating in that way.
Yeah. Did you ever hear about that famous case of there was hidden treasure, and there was like 3 documents found, or there was 2 documents. They knew there was a third one, but basically there was a family that was going to inherit this wealth, and somebody had buried it. I may be messing this up in some way, but you get the essence of it. But somebody basically left a puzzle that had like it's a real puzzle, treasure hunting puzzle that had these numbers, and it was like referencing. You had to know. You knew it was a book cipher. You just had to figure out what book it is, and it's a relevant book, and that book is going to tell you where to find this treasure, supposedly. So, did you hear about this?
Nope.
People are still I think they're still looking for it, or they found some portions of it, but there's still some more out there. Anyway, that's amazing.
That puzzle sounds rewarding.
Yeah, literally. So the last one is that the solution is inevitable. I think that, look, if you look at the movie, 7 is a great example of the ending is surprising yet inevitable. I think
this is a screenwriting thing that's said about screenwriting all the time too. Like your ending of your movie is inevitable. It should be surprising and inevitable.
Yes. And I think that is the same thing with puzzle design.
Okay.
That the answer is not just like, oh, okay, hopefully there's some sort of inevitability to it. That that inevitability I think comes from harkening back to the theme in some way. Again, it always comes back to theme. That's pretty much it. Like there's other wins. I know there's things that are
those are some great tips. I feel like I have learned a lot, and we had some discussions in preparing for this episode, and I can see now looking back on things that I was often like arguing from a point where like I didn't understand your rules here. And like I was like, make things simple, or
right.
This should be easy. Like they should know this thing or that thing. And I'm being a little bit obscure here, but like I think so. Do you want to handle this part?
Well, I mean, we could do it together. But what TREY is alluding to is we may have hidden a puzzle in this episode, and using the various media that this podcast uses, you might find some things. We might have even dropped some clues along the way if you were paying attention, because this really is about paying attention to the puzzles in life and the universe and the answers they'll give you. Now, look, I'm not saying that this is the perfect puzzle, that it's a 10 out of 10, but I think it's a little, to kind of get our feet wet, and hopefully you guys enjoy it.
Okay, so what you're saying is that we've put a puzzle within the podcast here. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that we want to specifically reference for people?
I would say that you can't solve this puzzle just by listening to the podcast. That
okay.
You should be aware of the various media that we use, and there should be something that
Facebook,
you commonly see.
What else? We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. You've got the podcast itself.
We have promotional art. Yeah, we have
show
lots
notes.
And they got the Discord. We got lots of different things. And I'm not saying that there's something everywhere, but somewhere you might be able to find some sort of key to what you'll have to do. Maybe we've said too much.
I think you said too much. Okay, but we'll tell you this: the answer to the puzzle is a single word, and we just want to caution people: if you do solve the puzzle, great. Don't go put the solution on Facebook, but it is cool to kind of say that you got it, and maybe you can allude to the answer, but don't ruin the puzzle for other people.
Yeah, look, if you find out the answer, then post. We encourage you to go on our Discord channel or our Facebook group and then post a synonym of the answer.
Okay.
To show that you've got it. Yeah. So.
We'll
onward,
see. We'll see.
Enjoy.
Like
we'll see. You think we're gonna actually solve it? You think people are actually
know
go through
your
this
audience?
exercise?
How many people actually care enough to do the puzzle and
find out?
Yeah, we'll find out. And let us know when you've when and if you've got it. Maybe we'll read your name on air.
And this was, by the way, done very hastily. I think it was Tuesday or something. I was saying,
good idea.
I was like, hey, should we do a puzzle?
There should be a puzzle inside of our podcast.
Yeah.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you very well might enjoy the other videos you now see being suggested to you on screen. Also, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, or subscribe to our Game Brain channel. Thanks so much.